All right, Shalom, Israel, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Mashakum Laki Washai. That is to say, Yahweh, been named the Heavenly Father, who the world will call God, and Yahweh Shai, been named his only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. All right, this is Brother Kasadia from WFI Jersey, Philly. And we're going into a little bit of history, right, and some biblical proof on how we can prove, you know, not just with prophetic precepts, but a little more historic linking, you know, on how we can link up the so-called white man, right, being Esau, right? We had a few weeks ago, we had a sister who came up and she was pretty much, you know, I mean, it's folly, but I don't know what camps are out there teaching this. I know she was in a congregation that was saying that the so-called white man or that Esau is a so-called black man, which literally makes zero sense. Right, so we want to give you the adequate ammo to pretty much arm yourself and be able to go to war against men that's bringing these heresies to the church. You understand? So like I said, we want to go into it. It shouldn't be too long, but nevertheless, let's kick it off. Let's go to the book. Actually, I'm going to kick it off real quick with the book of Malachi. All right. This is the book of Malachi, chapter 2. And I'm going to go to verse number 12, right? Malachi chapter 2 and verse 12. And it reads, the Lord will cut off the man that doeth this. It says, the master and the scholar out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offer an offering unto the Lord of hosts. To the Lord, he cut us off from being scholars. He cut us off from being wise master builders, wise teachers, men that went into the darkest of parables, you understand? Was able to break down and expound on the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which is provided for us at the time, having all the knowledge of the ancients. The Lord had cut that off for a season, but in these last days, we waking back up and we able to go into the history. We're able to pull out the secular knowledge. We're able to go into the geopolitics. We're able to link those things up with the prophecies because the Most High is expounding the wisdom understanding in these last days. You understand? If you want more wisdom, and you pray to the Most High, and he'll give you that wisdom. Let's go to that real quick in James. This is the book of James, chapter 1, right? And verse number 5. This is James 1 and 5. And it reads, right? Because out of all the nations, we're considered the wisest nation. When we come back to the Most High, when we keep the commandments of the Most High, the Lord reveals all those secrets and understanding to the children of Israel. This is the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of Yahweh that giveth to all men liberty. So the Lord gives this wisdom understanding to all men liberally. Meaning what? Freely. He's freely giving out this understanding. It's all you can eat. It's a buffet. Do you understand? So these different doctrines that's out here, they can be easily dismantled, right? And shattered and utterly broken to pieces, just applying a few precepts and using wisdom understanding that the Most High has given us. Reading on. It says, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Right, so the Lord said it'll be given you. I'm going to get one more, then we're going to kick it off. Let's go to 1 Chronicles, chapter 25. Right, 1 Chronicles, chapter 25, and I want verse 8. It says, and they cast lots, ward against ward, as well as the small, as the great, the teacher, as the scholar. So in the ancient world, like we showed you in Malachi, the 2nd chapter, that you had scholars. You had men that went into different books. You understand? Not just different books, like things that really meant nothing, like fictional books and things like that. When we mean by different books, we're talking about different historic records and breaking those things down and allowing Yasha'Allah to get the understanding. Even Paul, I'm going to go to that real quick in 1 Timothy. Paul had to do that. He told Timothy, make sure he bring those books when he came over to meet Paul. Let's go to that in 1 Timothy. It's 1 Timothy chapter 4, and I'm going to go to verse Salakia. Actually, I want 2 Timothy. All right. This is the book of 2 Timothy, chapter 4, and we'll start at verse 12. It says, and Tychus have I sent to Ephesus, the cloak that I left at Troas with Carpus, when thou comest, right, when Timothy comes, bring with thee and the books, but especially the parchments. So Timothy, or Paul told Timothy, look, when you return and you come meet me, hey, make sure you got the books. Hey, make sure you got the parchment. Hey, make sure you got the cloak that I left with you. I need those things. You understand? So Paul was a scholar. Hey, our forefathers wasn't just some niggas. That all they knew was how to shoot dice on the side of the block and drink a 40 and an OE. That's not what was going on. We wasn't dealing like that. Hey, we was taught that if you was just in the world, you would be led to believe that you were just a nigga, and that's it. But the Lord said our forefathers, they were scholarly men. Men that had understanding, men that was able to link up different things, right, and use the wisdom, knowledge, and discretion of the Most High to usher out the wisdom to the men of the Lord, right? So that all, as a whole nation, we could be built up on wisdom and not just content with just being niggas and being idle. I got one last precept that I was just thinking of. One last precept. Damn, where'd it go? Bear with me. I had one last precept that I wanted. All right. All right, it escapes. But Lord willing, I'll come back to it. All right, I forgot exactly what I was thinking about. All right, let's go to this, though. This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 1. We're going to kick it off with verse 1. Right, 1 Maccabees, chapter 1 and verse 1. And it reads, it says, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian. So Alexander, this Alexander speaking of, because when you go into history, there's a lot of different Alexanders. But this Alexander specifically is going into Alexander the Great, so-called great, the son of Philip II. Right? When you go into that lineage, you'll get the understanding on that. So look those things up. Don't just say, Casadia told me. No, I'm nobody. I'm just a man. Oh, the brothers in WFI, the cold cut champ. No. What you want to do is you want to get one of these. You want to have one of these, a piece of paper, and you want to write certain things down. You want to write it down, and you want to prove what I'm saying by doing your own research. Go back and go get your research in. So now, reading on. It says, Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian. Meaning what? He came from the city of Macedon, or the land of Macedon. Right? It says, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. Right? So this happened during the battle of Gaugamela. And actually, let me see that real quick. Right, I'm going to look this up for you real quick through the Spirit. Right, I don't know how to use StreamYard. I'm going to learn, though. Lord willing, I'm going to learn. Right, if you've been following, we'll get on there one day. But I'm going to find this Battle of Gaugamela. Like I said, I want you to look this up, too. So, Gaugamela. All right, so this battle, the Battle of Gaugamela, also called the Battle of Arbela, took place in 331 BC between the forces of the army of Macedon under Alexander the Great and the Persian army under King Darius III. It was the second and final battle between the two kings and is considered to be the final blow to the Achaemenid Empire, resulting in a complete conquest by Alexander. So this was, again, the Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. So Lord willing, you can look that thing up. There's something else I want to pull up. So again, we got Alexander, who, like I mentioned, we can kind of do a lot now. Let me see this. Alexander the Great, right? He's the son of Philip. I'm going to pull this up. So this is Alexander the Great. He's also known as Alexander III of Macedon. He lived from 356 BC up until 323 BC. Commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedon. He succeeded his father, Philip II, to the throne in 336 BC at the age of 20 and spent most of his ruling years conducting a lengthy military campaign throughout Western Asia and Egypt. By the age of 30, he created one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to northwest India. He was undefeated in battle and is widely considered to be one of history's greatest and most successful military commanders. And we know that this man, Alexander, was a so-called white man. We don't need this picture to prove it, right? But he's a so-called white man, right? I mean, that's plain. This man is highly regarded in the Edomite, or I'll just put it like this, the so-called white man, their society, their rulership, so on and so forth. He's up there. Really, I don't know who's higher than him as far as military commanders. You got him, you got Napoleon, you got these different men. You got Churchton Wentzel, who was over in Britain around the 1940s. You got these different men who was highly regarded for their military prowess. And really, like I said, no one is really higher than Alexander in the society, right? In their geopolitics, they kind of reverence this guy. He's a white man. Now, it says that Alexander the Great, he was known as a Macedonian. So let's read on. This is First Maccabees 1 and verse 2. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Right? We just read that. We literally read that he was undefeated in battle and that he had one of the largest empires in history, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. And why is that? Because when he took over, he destroyed Darius III in the Battle of Gaugamela, 331 BC. This allowed him to take over that whole Persian Empire, which is what? One of the vastest empires of all empires. Literally, some scholars say the Persian Empire is the first world superpower. How big that empire was. I'm going to look that up and see if I can pull it up. First world superpower. Let's see what comes up. See that? Look at that. It's literally the first thing. First world superpower. It says history's first superpower, the Persian Empire, originated in ancient Iran. It says history's first superpower sprang from ancient Iran under the leadership of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus, he began his he actually took over. Well, you know, he started ruling from 559, but he took over specifically of Persia and, you know, destroying Babylon in 539 BC, destroying the Babylonian Empire, Nebuchadnezzar. It says, under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, Persia ruled the world's first true empire, centered in Iran and stretching from Europe to Egypt to India. You understand? So they had it all, you know, they did their thing, right? That was Cyrus the Great. Now, let's continue on. So again, just if you're taking notes, for those that are taking notes, you have Alexander the Great. He was a Macedonian. That's First Maccabees 1 and 1. You can go on down to 3. Now, let's read who else in the scriptures were Macedonians, meaning you descend from that land, or you resided in that land of Macedon. Let's go to the book of Editions of Esther. Editions of Esther. Chapter 16, and I'll go to verse 10. Now, if you didn't know this, right, I'm going to show you something. If you didn't know this, you have, this is known as the rest of the chapters of the book of Editions of Esther, or book of Esther, which are found neither in the Hebrew nor in the Chaldee. Now, it's not found in the Hebrew because we know the Old Testament was actually written in Hebrew. So we have Esther that was written in Hebrew originally. But you have this, which is the rest of the books, which it says part of the 10th chapter after the Greek. So you have some of this was written in Greek. And really what you're going to find in the Apocrypha is mostly things that were found in the Greek that were translated over to the English. In the year 200 BC, you have a commission that was sent out Let me look this up real quick. Known as the Septuagint. You had 70 to 72 Hebrew scholars, Israelites, who translated, because we were in captivity at that time, who translated the scriptures out of the Hebrew, the Old Testament from the Hebrew to the Greek, because we were in that captivity. So I'm gonna look this up and I'm gonna show you this if you haven't saw this already. All right, and this is important to link all this up. All right, so you have something known as the Septuagint. It says the translation of the 70 derives from the story recorded in a letter of Artaxerxes to Philocrates that the law of the Jews were translated into the Greek language at the request of Ptolemy II Philadelphus. It says from 285 BC to 247 BC by 72 Jew translators, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. So you can look that thing up. That's a Septuagint. Septuagint is literally the Old Testament translated from the Hebrew to the Greek. Right? Again, commissioned by Ptolemy II Philadelphus, so that we can still keep the laws and heritage that the Most High commanded us to keep over in captivity under the Greeks. Now, we're reading about the edition of Esther. So this is edition of Esther chapter 16, and now we have verse 10. It says, for Haman, a Macedonian. So Haman, this man Haman, he was a Macedonian. The son of Hamata, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us, has so far forward obtained the favor that we showed toward every nation, as that he was called our father, and was continually honored of all men as the next person unto the king. So you have this man Haman, who is literally second in command. He's second in command over all of the Persian Empire during his time. That's important. Because again, it said that Haman was a Macedonian. Now, I have some history written down. I don't necessarily, we don't necessarily have to go into it. It will correlate with this, but, that's all right. I just want to stick with the point of the fact that Haman was a Macedonian. Because again, these are points that I want you to bring out when you want to highways and byways teaching for men that teach. When someone's coming to you and saying, well, prove that Esau is a so-called white man. Well, here's the proof that Esau is a so-called white man, right? From the scriptures directly. We're not going into the necessarily the prophetic part of it, because you could do that. It could be really easy, over and done with. But this is a different approach and a different alternative that still will validate that the so-called white man is Esau today. So again, we have Alexander the Great. He's a so-called white man. We know that. He was referenced in the scripture, and he's known in history as a Macedonian. He was the first one to actually unite all of Greece together. We're reading over here in Editions of Esther that Haman, he was known as a Macedonian as well. But we're going to read in Editions of Esther chapter 12 and verse number 6 that he descends from a man named Agag. And here's the turning point. This is the book of Editions of Esther, chapter 12 and verse 6. Howbeit Haman, the son of Hamatas, the Agathite, meaning descendant of Agag, who was in great honor with the king, sought to molest Mordecai and his people because of the 2 eunuchs of the king. So we got this man, Haman. He's a Macedonian, but he descends from the seed line of Agag. And of course, he wanted to do some evil, foul things to Mordecai and the children of Israel. I mean, what other people on this earth even thinks like that? All right. But nevertheless, it says that Haman, the son of Hamatas, the Agathite, was in great honor with the king. Now let's figure out who this man Agag is. Let's go to 1 Samuel. Just the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 15, and I'm going to go to verse 7. It says, and Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to shore that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and of the lambs, and of all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refused, that they destroyed utterly. So you have this man Agag. He's known as an Amalekite, meaning he comes from the nation of Amalek. Now, just to link it back up with you, we have Haman, who's a Macedonian, but he comes from the lineage of Agag, who's an Amalekite. So by default, Haman would be an Amalekite. But again, Haman was known as a Macedonian. We have Alexander, who's known as a Macedonian. We know that he's a so-called white man. They consider him to be Greek. He was the first one to actually unite the Greek Empire and make it the Greek Empire today. But he's a Macedonian nevertheless. He descends also from Amalek. Let's see who Amalek is in the scriptures. Let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 36. This is Genesis 36, and I'll start at verse 1. Now, these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. So what we're going to read is Esau and his lineage. I'm going to jump over to verse, what I want. I'm going to go to verse 12. Genesis chapter 36 and verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's sons, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So it shows you, even I'm going to go up to verse 9, right? It says, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites and Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, or Rael, the son of Beshemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zapho, and Gatim, and Kenaz. And Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's sons, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. So Esau had 3 sons, right? One of the sons was Eliphaz. Eliphaz, one of his sons was Amalek. So Amalek is a grandson of Esau, the Edomites. So when you have a man like Agag, who is an Amalekite, meaning he descends from the man that's a grandson of the Edomites. He comes from the Edomite nation. That's Agag. Then you have a man named Haman, who descends from the same stock and same lineage of Agag. Therefore, by default, he will come from the same stock and lineage of Esau, Amalek. You also have a man named Alexander the Great, a Greek man in most people's eyes, but he's known as a Macedonian. Why? Because he descends from that same lineage and same stock as Haman, as Agag, as Amalek, as Esau. It's plain. It should be plain. Lord willing, that was plain. If that wasn't plain, then, hey, comment. I want you to post a comment, right? And prove to us, or prove to the rest of Israel, because again, these different doctrines are coming out in these last days. Prove with precepts that Esau is a so-called black man, or prove with precepts that he's even Arab. Now that's something that's, relatively easy to dismiss. I'll go to that real quick just to cut that down in about 2 verses, right? We know he's not a so-called black man. That's plain. We know he descends, the so-called white man descends from Amalek, or descends from Esau. But it's the book of 1 Maccabees. I'm going to go to this real quick. 1 Maccabees chapter 5 and verse 3, right? Before this doctrine try to spew itself in the comments, we're going to cut that down right now. 1 Maccabees chapter 5 verse 3. Then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabiton, because they besieged Israel, and he gave them a great overthrow and abated their courage and took their spoils. Right? So Judas, Maccabeus, and his army fought against who? Esau, and destroyed them at this land known as Arabiton. Right? Let's jump down to verse 31. Let's see further on what took place with this account right here. This first Maccabees chapter 5, and I believe 1 verse 31. All right, let me see this. Actually, I'm gonna go to verse 38. It says, so Judas sent men to espy the host. And you can read this account. So Judas sent men to espy the host, who brought him word, saying, all the heathen that are round about us are assembled unto them, even a very great host. He had also hired the Arabians to help them. So hold on. You have, in verse 3, you have Judas Maccabeus. He's fighting against these Edomites of Idumea. He's fighting against them. Then you have later on in the same account that Judas, he had hired Arabians, Arabs, to do what? It says he had also hired the Arabians to help them, and they had pitched their tents beyond the brook, ready to come and fight against thee. Upon this, Judas went to meet them. So he had what? He hired these Arabians, these Arabs, to come and help out, to be commissioned in a battle, to go against who? Esau, that he was just fighting against. So how could Esau be the Arabs when literally you have an account of Judas fighting against these Edomites and hiring these Arabs to help them in a type of way, a part of his host in his battle? I mean, that don't make sense. You know, that makes zero sense. But again, you know, we approaching the time of the Passover. There's different doctrines that like to come out during this time. We've seen them for some time now. We're going to continue to chop them down, though, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshai. Right? So, Lord willing, you know, those things corroborated and made sense. Also, I want to show one more thing. I want to show another thing real quick. We have something else pulled up. So, you know, through my research, you also have a city over in North Macedonia is known as Idomeni. Idomeni, which literally goes back to the word Idumea. Now, here you go. Here you have it right here. So I think this is a fable or a lie. This is Idomeni. It says Idomeni is a small village in Greece near the border with North Macedonia. The village is located in a principality, or it's like a municipality of Pannosia, Kakilis regional unit of Central Macedonia. All right, so you have what? You have Esau, who living over in Macedonia. We just proved that these Macedonians were Edomites. One of the things he wanted to do was name that land after himself. That's what Esau does. Let's go to that. Right? Let's go to that in the book of Psalm. That's how they get down. This is the book of Psalm, chapter 44. And I believe I want it's like, is this what I want? Bear with me while I find this. Bear with me real quick. This is the book of Psalm, right? Psalm chapter 44, and I'm gonna start at verse. I start at verse Salakia 14. Right? It's the book of Psalm chapter 44, and I start at verse 14. It says, "Thou makest us a proverb among the heathen, a shaking of the head among the people." It says, "My confusion is continually before me, and a shame my face had covered me. For the voice of him that reproacheth and blasphemeth by reason of the enemy and revenger, all this is come upon us. Ye have, Slakia, yet have we not forgotten thee, neither have we dwelt falsely in thy covenant." Right? So Esau is always seeking to break covenants and come against the children of Israel. That's not the precept I wanted, though. I'm going to find it, though, most I willing. Right? Bear with me in a quick second. Right? Okay, kind of, I found it. This is the book of Psalm, chapter 49 and verse 11. Right? Thought it was 44. This Psalm, chapter 49 and verse 11, it says, "Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. Nevertheless, man being in honor abideth not. He is like the beasts that perish. So the Lord said what? This is what man does in the earth. Now we know we don't necessarily do that. Hey, the Lord, he took the land of Canaan, cast them out, placed the children of Israel there, and placed his name forever there in that holy land. But as a people, we know that Esau, wherever he goes, he tries to take that place over and literally take over. He puts his name there. You have Pennsylvania, which used to be the land of Native Americans, Gad and Reuben. But guess what? You have now what's known as Pennsylvania, named after William Penn, as well as New Jersey, known as the Duke, literally descends from a man named Duke Jersey. You have New York, descends from the man Duke York. You have so on as all of these different states over in America is named after what? These different Edomite men, white men. You also have what? America, named after Americus Vespucci. You have Africa, named after Leo Cyprius Africanus. You have all these different various lands taken over by the white man and renamed by the white man. All right, so that should be plain through the spirit. But nevertheless, I'm gonna give one precept. All right, I want to give one more precept. I want to go to the book of Genesis, the 4th chapter. All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 4, and I'll start at verse 16. It says, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Right, so that's that same spirit being issued back on the earth. Even from the beginning, this is how they got down. You understand? So, again, most are willing, this approach and looking at and linking up the precepts, it allowed you to see that these Macedonians are descendants of who? Amalek, who was also a descendant of Esau. So this is not only is a historical proof and historically accurate, but this is biblical proof and how you can easily chop down any false doctrine on who Esau is today. Lord willing, you was edified. I want to bid all honor and glory to Yahweh Shem HaShalom like you were shy. Kwame Yasharallah, continue to stay in the spirit. Continue to watch for these prophecies. Kwame Yasharallah, Shalom.